Chapter 1. The Idol's Embrace. Del trudged through the endless wasteland of sand-caked ruins, a city long surrendered to time and neglect. His every step echoed the fatigue of months spent battling starvation and solitude. Clad in a worn leather duster whose faded edges whispered of forgotten conflicts, and with a reddish shirt that defied the desolation, he appeared as one of the few bruised remnants of a lost world. At 5'11", with shoulder-length hair wind-tossed and eyes piercing blue that flirted with gray and hints of black, he was the very image of a man molded by harsh survival. In the barren chaos of what once was a bustling metropolis, Del's body moved on instinct rather than thought. Near the rusted carcass of a half-buried car, his hand grazed against a mysterious idol, its surface ancient and pulsating with a subtle, unholy energy. That brief contact stirred something deep within him, a curious fusion of dread and desire that tangled with his aching hunger. Almost as if in response to this silent summons, his senses sharpened amid the lingering call of the idol. Barely conscious, Del's battered form suddenly caught a tantalizing hint on the wind, the coppery tang of blood. Instinct overrode his weariness as the scent guided him away from the crumbling metal husk. Through the haze of exhaustion, his eyes, now inexplicably clarifying, caught sight of a small, frail creature. Whether it was a rabbit ensnared by a cruel shard of wire or a lizard, its weakened form barely clinging to life, did not matter. Hunger demanded sustenance, and his body, driven by primal need, lunged forward without hesitation. In a moment that blurred consciousness and instinct, Del sank his teeth into the injured animal. Warm, fresh blood flooded his mouth, coating his tongue with the raw vitality of life and death. As each drip of crimson ignited something wild within him, a transformative spark kindled. The idol's lingering influence, now merging with his very flesh, awakened a startling clarity in his vision. Colors sharpened, shadows deepened, and distant shapes took on a new, ominous definition. It was as if the act of feeding had unlocked a forbidden gift, a dark augmentation that promised both power and peril. As the frenzy of survival subsided, Del's senses slowly returned to a conscious awareness. Lying beside the shattered shell of the car, the taste of blood still vivid on his tongue, he was gripped by a dawning realization. He had fed on life, an act that was both a rescue from oblivion and the first step toward an irreversible transformation. The faint scars beginning to etch themselves along his skin, like the delicate brushstrokes of a grim artist, were early signs of the corrupt power that now coursed through him. In the quiet aftermath, as scorching winds swept over the ruined city and whispered secrets of ancient evils, Del's mind churned with conflicting emotions. Remorse mingled with a raw acceptance, and within that crucible of feelings, the true essence of his new destiny was forged. Every choice, every primal act of hunger, was now etched into his very skin, a solitary testament to the price of forbidden power. And so, as darkness beckoned and the eerie glow of the idol pulsed beneath his flesh, Del embarked on a journey where survival and corruption would forever intertwine. Chapter 2. The First Mark. Del awoke to a raw, aching hunger, not the familiar gnaw of emptiness, but something deeper, something altered. The lingering taste of blood clung to his tongue, metallic and primal, and with it came an unsettling clarity. The world around him seemed sharper, defined in a way it hadn't been before. The ruins loomed taller, the shadows stretched longer, and the distant echoes of the wasteland carried meaning, whispers of motion, of life, of prey. Instinct drove him before thought could intervene. His eyes, once a stormy blue tinged with gray, focused with eerie precision on a shifting shape in the sand. A lizard, small but alive, scuttled weakly against the ruins, its scales reflecting the dying sunlight. But Dell didn't see it. He sensed it. The scent of blood, faint and hidden beneath the stale air, reached him as if his body had tuned into something more than human perception. The idol embedded within his flesh pulsed, though he could neither see nor touch it. It was simply there, a part of him now, weaving its influence through muscle and mind. His fingers twitched, adjusting to his heightened senses, and his breath steadied, controlled, instinctual. He lunged before hesitation could take root. His hands closed around the lizard's trembling form. The creature struggled, weak but not yet willing to surrender. Dell felt his heart hammer in his chest, the remnants of his old self warring against the primal force urging him forward. But hunger won. His teeth sank into flesh, and warmth spread through his mouth as life faded from the small body. Then the shift began. A sharp sensation coursed through his veins, not pain, but adaptation. His vision sharpened further, pulling distant details into focus, the cracks in forgotten buildings, the scars of the world's decay, the faint trails left behind by creatures hidden beneath the sand. But more than sight, something deeper was awakening. His skin tingled, as if touched by an unseen hand. A faint, pale mark crept along his forearm, a subtle change, barely visible, but undeniable. The first sign of his transformation. He staggered backward, wiping his mouth with a trembling hand, his breath uneven. This wasn't just survival. This was something else, something irreversible. The wasteland did not grant power without consequence, and as Dell stood amidst the ruins, a man altered by hunger, he knew this was only the beginning. Chapter 3. Blood for Coin. Survival in the wasteland had always been a question of brutality. Dell, now more a creature of instinct than of man, found himself drawn into the life of a mercenary, not by ambition, but by necessity. The hunger carved its way deeper into him with every battle, every kill, every choice that led him further from whatever humanity remained. The idol, now fused beneath his skin, pulsed with silent acknowledgement of his path. Every fight sharpened him. His vision cut through the dust and decay like a blade. His reflexes quickened beyond normal limits, and the pale scars creeping along his arms whispered of something growing beneath the surface. The first contract had been simple. A group of scavengers holed up in the ruins of an old shopping center, guarding what little supplies they'd scraped together. Dell arrived with blood-stained hands and a promise, not of justice nor revenge, but simply efficiency. The ones who hired him cared little for morality. They wanted results. The fight was brief, brutal, and without honor. His blade carved through those who opposed him, his body moved without hesitation, and as the final survivor begged for mercy, he did not falter. The hunger did not allow mercy, it only asked for more. Yet it was after the battle, amid the rotting corpses and the stench of death, that Dell overheard talk of something different. A city beyond the wasteland, where humanity had carved out its last true bastion. A place where walls still stood, where law was enforced, and where one man, the butcher, ruled with an iron grip. The name carried weight, even among mercenaries. No one spoke it lightly. The butcher had built a kingdom in the ruins, forging order from chaos, in a world where order had long since perished. Some called him a savior, others called him a tyrant. Dell, standing over another dying man, had no opinion yet, but something inside him, a part untainted by the hunger, whispered that he needed to find this place. If civilization still stood, then perhaps something of his own soul could still be salvaged. For now, though, he was still a killer. still a blade in the hands of those who could pay. And the butcher? He was simply another name in the storm. Chapter 4. The Path of the Damned. The road to the City of Bones was paved in blood. Dell had ceased questioning the necessity of violence. Survival demanded it, and the hunger rewarded it. In the wastes, there was no morality, only strength, only dominance, only the unyielding will to outlast those too weak to carve their own existence. As he pressed forward toward the distant promise of civilization, he left behind a trail of carnage, earning whispers of a name not yet fully formed. His first taste of infamy came at a crossroads, a broken highway where dust swallowed the remnants of forgotten journeys. There, he encountered a group of traders, desperate men and women clinging to the illusion of commerce in a world that had nothing left to sell. They had weapons, but lacked the will to use them. Their carts held food, water, medicine, things Dell needed. The hunger did not ask for diplomacy. The attack was swift. His blade found throats before words could form in them. His hands moved without thought, guided by instinct rather than mercy. Their bodies fell, staining the cracked pavement in crimson splashes. He ate that night, tearing meat from bone, his vision sharpening once more beneath the idol's silent influence. Days later, he stumbled upon the remnants of an old militia, long since fractured into a lawless brigade. They raided settlements, burned homes, took what they pleased. But Dell did not seek alliance. He sought purpose. And purpose, in the wasteland, was built on reputation. He challenged their leader, a hulking brute with hands that had wrung more necks than could be counted. The duel was over before it began. Dell had become something more than a man. He was precise, calculating, an instrument of the hunger's will. His blade sank into the man's chest, twisting deep enough to sever whatever will had kept him standing. The others did not challenge him after that. They simply called him Harrow, the name traveling like a curse between those who lived long enough to whisper it. With each atrocity, the legend grew. By the time Dell neared the outskirts of the City of Bones, his name carried weight among survivors, mercenaries, and thieves alike. Harrow was no longer just a man. He was a specter, a shadow in the sand, a whisper of inevitable death. The butcher would know his name. And whether it was an invitation or a warning, Dell would step forward into the gates of the last city, knowing that redemption had never been farther from his grasp. Chapter 5. The Throne of Bone. The steel doors loomed before Dell, rusted but unbroken, a testament to the last city's endurance against time, against ruin, against the inevitable decay that swallowed everything beyond these walls. The weight of his name, Harrow, echoed in whispers among those who had seen his passage through the wastes, among those who knew what he had done. But here, in the heart of the City of Bones, his reputation meant nothing. With a deliberate push, Dell shoved the towering doors open, their metal groaning in protest as they revealed the throne room beyond. The air was thick with iron, the scent of blood and decay so potent, it clung to the walls. The floor, slick in places, was the graveyard of past conflicts, past sacrifices. At the far end of the hall, amidst flickering lanterns and the low murmurs of unseen figures in the shadows, the butcher sat. His throne was as its name suggested, a grotesque construct of human remains, bones fused together in unnatural formations, a monument to his reign. Flesh still clung to parts of it, brittle and dried like forgotten remnants of past meals. And the butcher himself, his form was draped in thick, battle-scarred leather, his arms monstrous in size, veins pulsing with a strength earned through survival alone. His teeth gleamed with wet crimson as he bit down into the coils of intestine in his grasp, the slick remnants of his latest feast dripping onto his chin. He did not rise. He did not speak. He only watched. Cold, calculating, amused. Del stood before him, his boots heavy with dust, his body marked by the hunger. His scars, pale like creeping decay, told his story. He had been claimed by something beyond himself, something both empowering and damning. And yet, facing this towering monument of cruelty, Del felt something stir beyond instinct, beyond hunger. He felt doubt. For the first time since his descent, the weight of his actions pressed against him. In the butcher, he saw not just a ruler, not just a tyrant, but something worse, a mirror. The silence stretched. Then, finally, the butcher spoke, voice thick with amusement, with command.
So this is the monster they whisper about in the wastes.
His grin widened, blood-stained.
Tell me, Harrow, do you come to serve, or do you come to die?
Chapter 6. The Brand of Bone. The butcher's laughter echoed through the blood-stained throne room, thick with amusement and certainty. He had seen men break before him, had seen monsters rise and fall, and now before him stood Harrow, the mercenary whose name carried weight in the wastes. Del did not kneel. He did not bow his head, but he did not refuse. The butcher grinned, wiping a crimson smear from his jaw before motioning to his attendants. Hulking figures clad in patchwork armor, their faces obscured by masks of carved skull fragments. One of them stepped forward, holding a heated iron, its surface etched with intricate engravings. The sigil of the City of Bones.
If you are to be one of us,
The butcher spoke, his voice filled with command.
then you will carry our mark.
Del did not flinch. The iron pressed against his forearm, scorching his flesh in a burst of pain that threatened to tear through his resolve. He gritted his teeth, breathing through the agony, watching as the sigil seared itself into his skin. A symbol of allegiance, of loyalty, of cruelty. A sigil shaped in fractured bone, lines jagged and imperfect, as if the city itself had reached out to claim him. The hunger within him pulsed in response. The butcher leaned forward, his smile widening.
Welcome to the last city, Harrow. Now let's see how much of a monster you truly are.
Chapter 7. The Vanishing. Time had twisted Del into something unrecognizable. The hunger, once a whisper, had become a steady drumbeat in his existence. He no longer fought it. He embraced it, indulged in it, let it shape him. The taste of human flesh was no longer foreign. It was familiar, necessary. Like the butcher, he had found power in consumption, earning respect, fear, and, most importantly, trust. Now, as constable of the City of Bones, Del ruled over the remnants of civilization's last stand. The guards answered to him, the streets bent to his will, and the echoes of his name carried weight among the broken souls who called this place home. Yet even here, in this place of sanctioned brutality, something stirred beneath the surface. The first whisper came from a beggar hunched in the slums, his skeletal frame barely visible beneath layers of filth and desperation.
They're disappearing.
He muttered, his voice hoarse, his eyes wild.
Taken in the night. No one sees. No one hears. They vanish, and the city forgets them.
Del almost ignored it. There was no shortage of death in this place. Starvation, murder, sacrifice. People disappeared every day. But then the whispers spread. A merchant, shaking as he packed his wares under cover of darkness. A guard, pale-faced despite the bloodshed he had seen before. A woman, clutching a child too tightly, her voice cracking as she whispered,
"It's the ones who have nothing left. They go first, and we never find them."
Something was taking them. Del moved through the slums with careful steps, the shadows clinging to him like old sins. The hunger still burned in him, but something beneath it. It was harder to place. An unease, a stirring in his mind that refused to quiet. Then, deeper in the city's underbelly, he found it. A mark, etched crudely into a crumbling wall, hidden from careless eyes. A symbol, sharp and spiraling, drawn with something dark and dried. Blood. The whisper of the true hunger was here. And for the first time in too long, Del felt something other than hunger. He felt fear. Chapter 8. Beneath the altar. The slums of the City of Bones were suffocating. Too many souls packed into the decaying remains of forgotten buildings, clinging to survival like rats scurrying in the dark. Del moved through its streets with Flare at his side, her sharp streak of crimson standing out against the dust-covered ruin, and Silas trailing behind, his silence as heavy as the iron truncheon strapped to his belt. They had followed the whispers, the murmurs of vanishing people, the hushed warnings carried between desperate voices. What had begun as scattered disappearances had swelled into something more, a pattern too deliberate, too precise, to be the simple cruelty of the city. And so they followed the thread of fear, tracing it to the edge of the slums where time had swallowed an old church, its structure barely visible beneath the erosion of years. Stone crumbled from its frame, vines strangled its foundation, and yet, beneath its decayed facade, something lingered. Del stepped inside, the scent of rot thick in the stale air. Flare exhaled sharply, gripping the hilt of her dagger as her eyes scanned the ruined interior, while Silas remained still, his gaze unreadable. Then they saw it, the way down. The altar, broken and shifted from its rightful place, revealed a tunnel cut deep into the earth. Stairs led into a void where darkness swallowed all but the first few steps. And the blood, fresh and dried alike, painted the stone in whispers of suffering. Del said nothing. He simply descended. Flare followed with rigid caution, and Silas, wordless as ever, moved beside them, the weight of his truncheon ready for the unknown. The deeper they went, the colder the air became. The silence pressed against them, thick and unnatural, until the only sounds were the muffled drip of unseen moisture and the steady, quiet breathing of three people walking into something they were not meant to find. And then, faint at first, but growing clearer with every step, the sound of chanting. Deep, low, endless. The words were incomprehensible, but their meaning was unmistakable. Worship. The hunger had followers, and Del had just stepped into their domain. Chapter 9. The Calling. The instant Del stepped into the chamber, everything changed. His senses sharpened with unnatural clarity. The air was thick with incense, the cloying scent of burning herbs mixing with something far more primal, more rotten. The walls pulsed with unseen energy, as if the very earth beneath the City of Bones was alive, breathing in tandem with something deeper, something waiting. And at the center of it all, standing before a monolith of obsidian, were the cultists. They knelt in eerie synchronization, their robes deep crimson, their heads bowed in reverence. Their voices murmured an unknowable tongue, words twisting through the chamber with an unsettling cadence, a chant more felt than heard. But Del's gaze locked onto the figure standing at their head. A giant of a man, towering over the worshippers like an unholy prophet, his deep red robe flowing around his hulking form. But it was his arm, his right arm, that tore through every rational thought Del had left. The limb beneath the robe writhed, pulsed, twitched like something alive, independent, yet bound to his flesh. The fabric shifted with its movements, stretching unnaturally as if struggling to contain whatever creature had embedded itself within his body. The monolith, sleek and black as the void itself, called to him, to the hunger, to the force that had been growing inside him since he first touched the idol. Del's breath hitched, his heartbeat hammering against his ribs. His skin burned, his scars tingling in response to the pull radiating from the obsidian. This was where it came from. This was the source. And for the first time, Del felt something stronger than hunger. He felt fear. Chapter 10. The Awakening. Del stood frozen, his breath shallow, his pulse hammering against his ribs. The cultists chanted their devotion to the hunger, their voices weaving into the shadows of the chamber. The monolith pulsed, calling to him, to the scars etched into his flesh, to the force buried beneath his skin. But as he stared at them, something inside him stirred. Their corruption, their madness, their blind worship. It was not unfamiliar. It was him. The blood he had spilled, the flesh he had consumed, the atrocities he had committed beneath the butcher's rule. For so long he had embraced the hunger, let it shape him, mold him into something more than human. And here, before him, were the end result of that path. They had given themselves entirely to it, and the horrors they would unleash, he knew them, because they were the horrors he had once become. Something snapped in Del's mind, cutting through the haze of instinct, of power, of indulgence. His conscience, buried deep beneath the weight of cruelty, awoke. He had fallen so far, but he was not beyond redemption. And if he did nothing, if he let this madness continue, then he would be just as guilty as those kneeling before the monolith. Number, not guilty. He would be one of them. And for the first time, Del made a choice that was not driven by survival, nor by hunger. He made a choice to fight, to stop them, to tear down the monstrosity that had called to him for so long. His grip tightened around his weapon. And deep beneath the City of Bones, in the heart of the cult's domain, Del chose rebellion over ruin. Chapter 11. The Severance. The cultists barely had time to react. Del lunged, his body moving with an unnatural swiftness, tearing through them like a force of nature unleashed. Flesh tore, bones shattered, limbs became weapons as he swung dying bodies into the living, his every movement fueled by the awakened fury burning through him. Blood painted the chamber. The chanting fractured into screams. But the head cultist did not flinch. He moved, fast, impossibly fast for a man his size, his deep red robe billowing as his right arm, his monstrous limb of writhing tendrils, lashed outward. The grotesque appendage pulsed, its movements too fluid, too precise, more creature than human. It struck like a living blade, slicing through the air, blocking, parrying, attacking with mindless precision. But Del was relentless. His hunger had ruled him for so long, but now, rage was its equal. The battle was brutal. Each strike rattled the cavern walls. Each step sent broken cultists tumbling into darkness. The head cultist's limbs snapped toward him, but Del twisted, avoiding its deadly reach. It was an execution, not a fight. And when the moment came, when the beast of an arm lunged toward him one last time, Del caught it, ripped it free. The scream was guttural, but Del didn't hesitate. He drove his knee into the cultist's chest, grabbed his head, and tore. The body crumpled. The silence was instant. But Del did not stop. His breath ragged, his body trembling with the violence that had consumed him. He turned toward the monolith. It called to him, pulsing like a dying heart, whispering in a voice that was not heard but felt, deep in his bones, in his scars, in the remnants of hunger still curling beneath his skin. His fingers tightened into a fist. Then, with all the force of his defiance, he struck. The obsidian shattered. A ripple tore through the chamber, a scream that was not human but ancient, cosmic, eternal. A voice that was the hunger itself.
You believe this changes your fate?
It whispered, low, crawling, a presence more than a sound.
You will come to know the truth, hero. You are marked. And when the time comes, when the hollow world rots beneath your feet, you will remember this moment, and you will know that defiance has only delayed the inevitable.
The voice faded, but the weight of its words did not. Del stood in the wreckage, breath heaving, his hands stained with blood. He had broken the hold. But had he truly escaped the hunger? Or had he simply angered it?